My mom glared at me, placing her hand on the will. You won't get a single cent. I smiled and stood up. Then don't expect a single cent from me either. Hey Reddit. Before we start, I just want to say that this is our new channel, and we're really working hard to bring you the best stories. So make sure to subscribe to get us 1,000 subscribers very soon. Let's start the story. I never thought I'd have to draw a line with my own mother, but that night at the dinner table, it became crystal clear that I had no other choice. It had been brewing for years, really. Her favoritism toward my younger brother, her dismissive attitude toward my efforts, and her expectation that I would always be the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who never asked for anything but always gave. But the moment she placed her hand on the will, looked me dead in the eye, and said those words, something in me finally snapped. We had gathered for what was supposed to be a civil dinner. My mom, my younger brother Jake, and me. Dad had passed away a year ago, and ever since, things had shifted in ways I hadn't anticipated. Mom had always favored Jake, but without Dad around to balance things out, her bias had become blatant. She coddled him, excused his failures, and rewarded his recklessness while holding me to impossible standards. I had built my own life from the ground up, graduated with honors, secured a high-paying job, and never once asked my parents for financial help. Meanwhile, Jake had burned through every dollar ever given to him, jumping from one failed business venture to another, racking up debts that he somehow always expected others to cover. That night, over steak and wine, the conversation had inevitably turned to Dad's will. I already had a feeling of where it was going, but I let Mom talk anyway. She went on about how Jake had potential, how he needed support to get back on his feet, how it was only fair that Dad's assets should go to the child who required them the most. She even tried to guilt-trip me by saying that I was already successful and that money wasn't everything. Then, she delivered the final blow. She placed her hand over the will resting on the table and, with that icy stare she always used when she wanted to shut down any argument, declared, "You won't get a single cent." I stared at her for a long moment, the weight of those words settling in. Jake, of course, sat there smirking, twirling his fork between his fingers like this was some kind of game he had already won. He probably had. He had been playing Mom like a fiddle for years, after all. But I wasn't about to be part of it anymore. All right, I finally said, a slow smile spreading across my face as I set my fork and knife down with deliberate care. I could see the flicker of confusion in Mom's eyes. She expected me to argue, to plead, to get angry. Instead, I simply stood up, straightened my suit, and met her gaze head-on. Then don't expect a single cent from me either. Mom blinked, caught off guard. Jake scoffed, muttering something under his breath about me being dramatic, but I ignored him. I had given so much to this family, paid off bills when things were tight, helped Jake out more times than I could count, even supported Mom emotionally when she had no one else. And yet, none of it mattered. In the end, I was just the reliable son, the one who could be discarded because I wasn't needy enough. I turned on my heel and walked toward the door. Mom called my name, but her voice lacked the usual authority. For the first time, I saw something close to panic flicker across her face. Maybe she had assumed I would always be there, always ready to pick up the pieces. Not this time. As I stepped outside into the crisp night air, I felt something I hadn't in years: freedom. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. But little did I know, that decision would set off a chain of events that neither Mom nor Jake was prepared for. And soon, they would both come to realize that cutting me out of the will wasn't just about money. It was about losing something much more valuable. The moment I walked out of that house, I made peace with the fact that I was done. No more last-minute financial bailouts. No more stepping in to clean up Jake's messes. No more pretending that this family was anything but transactional. I had spent years proving my worth, thinking that if I just worked hard enough, if I just succeeded enough, my mother would finally see me the way she saw Jake, someone worth fighting for. But she never would. I kept my word. Over the next few months, I cut all financial support. The bills I used to quietly cover? Unpaid. The money Jake used to text me for when he was in a bind? Ignored. Mom tried to act like it didn't bother her at first, but cracks started to show. She called once, pretending she just wanted to check in, but the forced casualness in her voice gave her away. Then, when I stayed distant, she started leaving passive-aggressive voicemails, ranting about family obligations and how I was turning my back on them in their time of need. I didn't reply. Then, things started crumbling fast. Jake, having never learned financial responsibility, defaulted on a loan. He had taken out money using Mom's house as collateral, convinced that she would always have my financial backing to fall back on. Without me to swoop in and fix things, Mom was blindsided when the bank came knocking. The house she had lived in for decades, the same house she had confidently told me would be passed down to Jake, was suddenly at risk of being taken away. Mom showed up at my office unannounced. My secretary looked uncertain when she told me there was an older woman waiting for me in the lobby. Her voice hushed, as if she could sense the tension in the air. When I stepped out and saw Mom sitting there, looking smaller than I had ever seen her, I almost felt something close to sympathy. Almost. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She launched straight into it, telling me about Jake's mistake, how she didn't realize what he was doing, how she never expected things to spiral so fast. She talked about how the house was all she had left of Dad, how she couldn't bear to lose it. And then, finally, she looked me in the eye and asked if I would help. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and studied her. Help. That was all she had ever wanted from me. Not love, not respect, just help. I asked her a simple question. If the roles were reversed, if I had been the one drowning in debt, if I had been the one who needed the inheritance to survive, would she have chosen me? Her silence was answer enough. I stood up, just like I had that night at dinner, and told her I had my own life to live, my own future to secure. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with it. As I walked away, she called out my name one last time, voice shaking, but I didn't turn back. Jake lost the house. Mom moved into a small apartment, a far cry from the life she had envisioned. And me? I thrived, because for the first time in my life, I was free from the weight of their expectations. And I never looked back.